So we're all aware of the questionable data and sources that have been quoted throughout this election campaign. I make particular reference to President Trump's interview, the Axios interview with Jonathan Swan, where they were analysing coronavirus data. My question to the panel is, how much do facts still matter? Do they still matter as much as they used to in the age of optics?
Lydia, Khalil, do facts matter?
Well, they have to matter. They have to matter because if we don't agree on shared facts, then we don't have a shared reality. And if we don't have a shared reality, then what are we doing? We will not be able to relate to each other as a human species. I mean, I think that's what makes us unique as humans, is that we are capable of having a shared reality and be able to build up our community in that way and to solve problems through that very basic construct. Otherwise, we're going to be living on different planets. I mean, just because people have differences of opinions and we're in a polarized media landscape and the information landscape is extremely fractured right now, to go so far as to say that facts don't matter, I think contributes to that problem.
But in this American election, we're talking about much more than differences of opinion. We're talking about the diminishing of truth. We're talking about the widespread pollution of information streams such that many voters cannot know what the truth actually is. That's a very different and unique thing, isn't it, Lydia?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, you know, the internet does have a role to play in this, but I was actually just reading a study out of the Berkman Center at Harvard, and it was saying that while social media might be an amplifier, a lot of this disinformation, misinformation reality is coming from the mainstream media that actually gets amplified on the internet. I mean, the purpose of all of this disinformation is not a contestation of ideas. The purpose of it is to muddy the water so much that you just throw up your hands and say, oh, I don't know what reality is anymore. Who knows? You know, and accept that as our modern, you know, way of life. What I'm saying is that we cannot accept that. We have to put a value on empirical analysis, on empirical fact, you know, make an effort as a community to combat this.
And I would add to that you know, that is journalism. So the fourth pillar of democracies everywhere is a free and fair press. So we need to be investing in journalism, not cutting budgets, and we need to be expanding our media outlets that are you know, well-funded. Fortunately, here in Australia, you have a well-funded national broadcaster with the ABC. The United States doesn't have that. Their national broadcaster is a shadow of what we get here.
But hold on, earlier in this conversation, Salvatore was praising the free and open internet, right?
Yes.
Isn't that where so much of this misinformation, the lies, the hate...
Because it's where we find our facts. It's where we pick and choose our facts. When you were on this show last time...
The algorithm chooses your facts.
No, when you were on the show last time in September, you told us that the U.S. economy had been destroyed during this coronavirus epidemic, and that was all due to Donald Trump. Yet, if you look at the OECD's September economic forecasts, they expect the U.S. economy to do better this year than any other developed country in the world, including better than Australia. Now, those facts are both true. Which ones you report, right? That's a matter of judgment.
It's also the context. You know, well, let me just answer that, because you've obviously studied the previous program quite closely.
I watched it, of course I did.
But when I talked about a shattered economy, if you don't think that having 20 million people unemployed and having the deficit tripled to over $3 trillion, to have a debt of $22 trillion.
Those are all facts.
To have...
but it's also a fact that the U.S. economy has outperformed
businesses closed,
outperformed Japan, outperformed every country in Western Europe.
Okay, but what is the reality on the ground? What's the reality on the ground in America for most people?
Well, the reality on the ground is not a fact. The reality on the ground is an interpretation.
With respect, let me just bring up an important fact. The coronavirus is real. It is killing people.
Yes.
And on the internet right now, particularly swirling around this US election, is a whole stack of information denying it. Isn't that a problem for democracy? Do you acknowledge that?
No, the problem for democracy would be if we didn't let people express their viewpoints. Because incorrect viewpoints are sorted out in the market for ideas.
Hundreds of millions of dollars out of the spread of this misinformation.
Yeah, it was an Australian doctor who discovered that stomach ulcers could be cured by antibiotics. That was radical misinformation being quashed by the medical profession until it turned out to be true. How do we know which opinions are true, we expose them to light. We discuss them.
I don't think it's so hard to find the truth.
Let me bring in Greg Sheridan, who's been trying to get in.
Yeah, so Hamish, first of all, let me congratulate the ABC on putting its social media reputation so much on the line by having me on this program. Very disappointed that Damien thinks it's a good thing that I'm attacked on social media because my boss is Rupert Murdoch. That's a strange New York Times view to have. But let me tell you, I'm very proud to work for Rupert Murdoch, and he's made a fantastic contribution to civilization. But I do think
I think that's a whole other discussion for a whole other program, Greg.
Yeah, well, look, you know, I mean, some prejudices, like the New York Times prejudices, are woke and politically correct and apparently sanctified. The rest of us just have opinions which are disgraceful because of who we work for. Not because of anything we've said, but because of who we work for. That is the New York Times in a capsule, and that's a big part of America's problem today. But I wanted to say this. I agree that we do need to regulate the social media. I do think we have a big problem with the incivility of discourse today, and the worst incivility, certainly it's encouraged by Donald Trump. Let there be no doubt about that. The worst incivility is found on social media. I don't do any social media. Apparently some people are so unoccupied that they do social media in my name, God bless them. But the regulation of the social media should not lead to political censorship. So if Dr. Mahathir says it's right that Muslims should kill millions of French people, that's right. I think the social media companies should stop his account and stop him from saying that. But if an American immigration official says we've stopped dangerous criminals from coming over the border with Mexico, that may be a bit of an unpleasant thing to say, but big tech and social media should not be able to censor that. So what you've got to do, I think, is you've got to have clear regulations that incitement to violence is illegal, and I think the big tech companies need to be broken up. They are vastly bigger companies than anything Rupert Murdoch ever dreamed of, and they have too much power.
Greg Sheridan, though, should the tech giants silence, delete, remove, or somehow notify a tweet from the president which says coronavirus is going away or that it won't kill you?
No, I don't think they should. Look, the history of US presidents saying stupid things is very long and illustrious. And we believe in democracy, in freedom. We believe that you have a debate and you adjudicate on the rightness or wrongness of a person's arguments. Now, if the president, and he has never said this, but if the president were to say, I want you to go and take violent action against Hispanic people. So if the president would ever say, I want you to take violent action against people on the basis of their race, I think any social media company should delete that. But if they simply think that what he is saying is incorrect or tendentious or whatever, if he says the virus is going away, I mean, that is so contestable a proposition that it should not be censored. And here's the thing, you cannot allow only the speech that you find agreeable. You've got to allow people who say stupid things and even offensive things, provided they're not inciting violence or breaking the law, to be judged by the canons of debate. And it is a complete failure of faith in democracy to say Donald Trump is so convincing that all Americans will be misled by him and our only response is to silence him on social media.
Okay.
Isn't that the role of
what the president says? What the president says matters. What the president says matters. There's been studies that have said that he is the largest spreader of COVID misinformation online. And maybe some of the work that I do can shed a bit of light on this. I'm involved in an effort called the Global Network on Extremism and Technology, and where we're trying to tackle these issues with the major tech companies. And there are some belated moves, but I think important moves that are being made, particularly around COVID and the elections that are happening. There are disclaimers that are put when people say things that are contestable and harmful. If you're saying that COVID is not real, or that's a harmful thing. You know, if you're inciting followers to violence, that's incitement to violence, no matter if the president says it or others say it. So there has to be some limitations against an unchecked freedom of expression. We're talking here about things that are beyond expressing your opinions, beyond expressing your values. When you are inciting violence, when you are putting misinformation to such a large degree during a global pandemic, these are things above and beyond opinions